the executive deans of faculties, particularly Professor Barend van Wyk, the executive dean of the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology, Professor Cheryl Foxcroft, DVC of Learning and Teaching, professors and all members of the Academy that are here in present, members of senior management, students, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. I want to also greet the family members, friends and colleagues who may be joining us online. It is a distinct pleasure for me to welcome you here this evening on the occasion of the inaugural lecture to be delivered by our colleague, Professor Brink Botha. I wish to acknowledge and welcome in particular Professor Botha's family and extended family and friends, especially his wife Celeste and his children Kylene Sibyl and Brink Benjamin, as well as his mentors and colleagues who have journeyed with him, who have supported him and encouraged him on the road to this high point in his career. We know that the support of family, Professor, the support of friends and colleagues stand at the core of our success as individuals and is our compass in the journey of life. Let me congratulate you, Professor, on your outstanding achievement. Being promoted to the level of a full professor is the ultimate recognition of your accomplishments as an academic and as a scholar. It is always a matter of personal pride and pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, when one of our own is acknowledged by their peers and community. This is indeed the case with Professor Botha, who is a son of this region, having been born in Kariga, and who has completed all his studies here, the majority of them at this very, our own university. Professor Botha, your immersion in your study and generation of new knowledge in the field of built environment and construction management is as exemplary as it is path-breaking. This outstanding achievement speaks to your dedication and passion to make a difference to this dynamic, relatively new, yet topical knowledge field, which is also highly relevant for the times that we find ourselves in. The mentorship and leadership role that you fulfill in the industry and the community are testament to your commitment to its development, to its formalization, to its advancement, which, as you indicate, is in dire need of further scholarly inquiry. Your diligence and dedication to your craft have been widely recognized and amply acknowledged through a laudable number of publications, awards, and accolades. And we have no doubt, Professor, that your intended contribution towards the professionalization of the discipline of property management or property development will add to diversity of scholars, and it will also add to the expansion of scholarly work in this discipline. Your achievements to date, your scholarly track record, your career at Mandela University, and your role in the industry have been remarkable. In tackling a second doctorate through the development of the property development body of knowledge, you offer a perfect example of our university's commitment to lifelong learning. But equally, you demonstrate in word and in deed what it means to be an engaged and an activist scholar and an academic citizen. We look forward to listening to your lecture tonight. Your contribution will offer us deeper insights into how practices are changing and evolving in line with our regional and national contexts, and how in this setting a complete set of concepts, terms and activities, so to speak, a body of knowledge, will encourage and promote formalization, professionalization, quality and good governance in this special field. The completion of this important work will be a major achievement, and it will undoubtedly position our university as the front runner in the field. And for this I am very proud and I am very grateful. I am of the view that this will play a significant role in further attracting students to the university to pursue their studies in our programs in the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology. I thank you, Professor Botha, for pushing boundaries and for being unequivocally committed to quality and excellence in your discipline. We are proud of your accomplishments and we are proud of your contributions in this scholarship. Congratulations once again. I'm now going to request the Dean, Professor Barend van Wyk, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology, to introduce Professor Botha. Enkosi, I thank you, Mazenetol.
Brink Botha was born in 1974 in Kariga, where he completed his primary and secondary education before joining the Defence Force and continuing with his involvement in community work, music, arts and culture. He started his association with the Nelson Mandela University in 1996 as a first-year student and later completed a national diploma and 2 Bachelor of Technology degrees, all cum laude. He went on to do a master's degree in the built environment and also a PhD in construction management. During this time, while continuously engaging with industry and multi-million rand development and construction projects, he progressed from junior lecturer through the ranks until being formally appointed as full professor on this occasion, I suppose. He also fulfilled various leadership functions within the institution, ranging from head of department to co-director of various programs. He also participated in the university's in-house leadership effectiveness advancement program. His career highlights include multiple special awards and more than 70 international peer-reviewed publications, book chapters, journal papers and conference proceedings. His current research focus is to develop the international property development body of knowledge, which is also the title of his lecture tonight, and to publish a related best practice guide for use by academia and industry. He is doing all this while also currently supervising a cohort of more than 30 postgraduate students. After a recent harrowing ordeal with COVID, Brink sent me a message a week ago, which I will paraphrase as follows. 2 physicians said that should my condition deteriorate by another 5%, I would not be live and would not be able to deliver my inaugural lecture. But I'm grateful to have survived and carry on with God's work. This Damascus event recalibrated my life and showed me anew from the start what is important. Brink, the faculty is blessed by your recovery. The rest of you might not know this, but Brink is also a semi-retired musician and artist. If I look at him tonight, maybe he's not as semi-retired as his CV says. He is looking forward to further his career with excitement and a newly acclaimed passion. I now want to introduce Professor Brink Botha.
Honorable Professor Mutwa, Professor van Wyk, University Management, colleagues, students, special guests, friends, family, all protocol observed. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very humbled and blessed to be here this evening. My inaugural lecture titled The Property Development Body of Knowledge will now follow. Thank you.
Property Development Body of Knowledge. Table of Contents. Abstract, Background and Introduction, Definition of Terms, Property Development Explained, Factors Affecting Success in Property Development Projects, the Property Development Project Life Cycle, Property Development Knowledge Areas, Perceived Property Development Body of Knowledge, Proposed Best Practice Guide towards Sustainable Success in the Profession of Property and Real Estate Development, the Research, the Process, Conclusion, Recommendations. The abstract. Property development constitutes one of the largest enterprises and gross domestic product contributors of the world. Property development is about the development of land or real estate. The business of property development boasts enormous successes over the centuries, however, also incurred substantial losses. Then the COVID-19 pandemic took this sentiment to new horizons. Empirical research identified factors affecting the perceived success of property development. The property development project life cycle has been identified to an extent. However, in the international arena, there are still extensive debate in terms of what constitute the accepted norm and stages involved in the proposed property development project life cycle. During primarily the last 2 decades, further empirical research identified certain knowledge areas that inform the property development process and ultimate life cycle. However, a best practice guide informing the property development body of knowledge does not exist. The primary objective of this ongoing research project will be to deliver this new knowledge. The secondary objective will be in the form of knowledge areas aligned to the internationally agreed property development project life cycle that will enable the practice of property development to be professionally governed in all its impact and composure. Background and introduction. Property development is an exciting and occasionally frustrating, increasingly complex activity involving the use of scarce resources. It is a high-risk activity that often involves large sums of money tied up in the production process. Definition of terms. Property development can be described in its widest sense as any activity which changes the state of land and can be identified under the following 3 categories: erection of new buildings, demolition of existing buildings and their replacement, improvement of existing buildings. Real estate development. Real estate development or property development as referred to is a process encompassing activities contributing towards the development of land or parcels of land and real estate. Real estate is the land along with its natural resources, that which is fixed to the land, that which is appurtenant to the land, and which is immovable by law. The current research that amongst other informs this inaugural lecture refers to property development encompassing and contextualizing real estate in similar realm and thematic approach. Body of knowledge. A body of knowledge is a complete set of concepts, terms, and activities that make up a professional domain defining professional association with learned society, and in this instance, the property development fraternity. Best practice. In its generic format, commercial or professional procedure that are accepted or prescribed as being correct or most effective is referred to as best practice. Property development explained. Property development can be thought of as an industry that produces commodities in the form of built spaces such as houses, offices, or factories. The commodities so produced are not only productive assets, as they provide a flow of benefits that includes the provision of accommodation as well as income, but also financial assets in that they have capital value and can be realized by sale. In its simplest, urban economic activity generates requirements for land and property which might be met by the existing stock of buildings or through new development. These requirements are mediated through a property market process which, amongst other things, determines property values, allocates space in buildings between competing users, and stimulates the production of new space through development and redevelopment. Over the last 2 decades, the demand for land resources has changed significantly. This has been brought about by changes in the size, income, and preference of the global population. The rate of growth of economic activity, methods of transport, and techniques of production and distribution, all referred to as demographics. On the supply side, existing buildings became obsolete, and the cost of construction of new buildings are adapting old buildings. Changes significantly, however. Development is a response to such changes of property developers performs a range of functions, acting as entrepreneurs who recognize development potential and bear the risk of the project. Property development in the private sector. Property developers sometimes become property investors in their own developments. In typical cases, these developers turned investors become new owners and hence plays a role in decision-making relative to facilities management and possible further redevelopment. This phenomenon has an influence also in terms of how the property development project life cycle is interpreted in terms of especially the final close-out stage. Property development in the public sector. Terms like initiation and briefing of the development life cycle is replaced by institutional terminology, such as terms of reference, for example. Then in the feasibility and viability reporting stage, more emphasis is placed on budgetary requirements than pure value relative to cost. In the end, the chronological flow of the practical side of the development's life cycle stays very much the same. Factors affecting success in property development projects. On the right-hand side, on the model scale in front of you, you will see a model of perceived success of property development, indicating factors depicting as variables or constructs that have a hypothetical relationship interdependently and more specifically towards the dependent variable, in this case, the perceived success of property development. This was part of a research project internationally which identified a business model for property development. The next slides will explain these variables known as factors affecting the success of property development. Factors affecting property development continue. Feasibility. A feasibility study is an essential tool in considering the potential financial outcome and perceived success of a project that is already in the planning stage of the property development process. Viability. A viability study is an in-depth investigation of, amongst other, the profitability of a business idea to be converted into a business enterprise. For an idea to be viable, it must be marketable. The business must be manageable and viable at a sustainable point. The viability study is the first phase of business planning to establish whether a business idea is viable to proceed. Profitability. Having a goal of profitability and crafting a strategy to achieve it are what separates successful from unsuccessful entrepreneurs in terms of the perceived success of projects undertaken, especially in the private sector. Factors affecting property development continue. Risk management. Although the distinction between uncertainty and risk is widely accepted, the terms are often used interchangeably. In practice, developers tend to refer to risk. Procurement is the stage of the development process which includes the appointment of a building contractor, agreement on the type of building contract to be used, and the construction of refurbishment of the building on site in accordance with a set of design drawings and specifications. Different types of building procurement offer a range of risk transfer opportunities, not to be underestimated. Factors affecting property development continue. Strategic factors. Property markets are affected by unforeseen consequences of unforeseen events resulting from strategic factors such as durability, heterogeneity, indivisibility, long gestation periods in production, susceptibility to intervention and regulation, the high cost of entering property transactions, exchange and exit, demand appraisal, feasibility, viability, and decision-making to be considered in the business process. External specialist advice. The property development process is complex, and most developers do not have all the skills required to deal with a major development adequately. The benefits of using specialist advice includes engendering of accountability, guidance with respect to decisions, guidance with respect to the right decision and direction, guidance with respect to the next step, motivation, and also moral support. Governance structures. Governance structures in property development entails all the processes and interaction such as laws, norms, organized society, all governed by the state. Factors affecting property development continue. Demand planning. The macroeconomic concept of demand should be part of the feasibility study and viability reporting on a property development project, especially in the private sector where demand planning very much dictates the terms in terms of decision making relative to the property development initiative. Demographics is a response to changes such as the change in demand for land resources, significant changes in the cost of constructing new buildings, national population growth rates, local population growth rates, migration patterns. The type of population can be determined by means of the age distribution of the population, the size, type, and duration of households, etc. Factors affecting property development continue. Urban planning. Land and property development are a key dimension of both urban capacity and urban quality. Urban areas require a development industry with a capacity to produce and refurbish sites and buildings in a context of dynamic and unpredictable changes in demand for locations and for building forms. Pestle analysis. An environmental analysis should identify any key external factors that require some form of organizational action. The Pestle framework that form part of one of the key factors affecting the property development decision as follows: political, economical, societal, technological, environmental, legal. Factors affecting property development continue. Trends analysis and property cycles. Major events that trigger major cycles in property markets are often explained by irrational human or crowd behavior. Property development practitioners should be mindful and cautious of the holistic business process based on which trends and cycles should be identified and programmed into the parameters of property and development trends and cycles. The cyclical nature of the demand for property is driven by different factors such as interest rates, building lags, the different supply and demand conditions for various property types, the cycle boom, overpayment, slum survival, known as the property clock or boss cycle, and also economic and property research that establish the nature of the link between the business cycle and the property development market. The property development project life cycle. Various literature argues that the property development process is best described as a life cycle comprising of stages that includes processes. Property development follows a chronological and interlinked process of activities or events through a typical property development project life cycle via critical and non-critical path. The perceived property development project life cycle can be identified in a total of 15 stages depending on the extent of involvement as decided by the parties involved. The property development project life cycle can hence be identified as follows. Stage 1, property development initiation and briefing, including the intent and purpose analysis, demand and supply. Stage 2, professional feasibility and viability reporting. Stage 3, pre-acquisition, identification and securing of vacant land or property. Stage 4, design, site development plan. Stage 5, procurement. Stage 6, marketing. Stage 7, infrastructure development. Stage 8, construction and documentation. Stage 9, tenant installation or special requirements. Stage 10, letting. Stage 11, occupation. Stage 12, property development project close out. Then optional further stages. Stage 13, property management. Stage 14, facilities management. And stage 15, future development. Property development knowledge areas. On the right hand of your screen, you will see knowledge areas that inform business success and further perceived success in general of property development projects. This was findings of empirical research as part of a PhD project that was concluded in 2013 and widely published. These knowledge areas are now included with further knowledge areas that's identified as part of further extensive research that will inform the property development project life cycle. The further lecture will inform on these knowledge areas, amongst other. Property development knowledge areas. Financial risk forecasts. Inflation and escalation in procurement contracts has a major impact on the business success of a proposed property development project. Although relatively accurate inflation figures exist and allowance for escalation and interest or borrowed capital or own equity are taken into consideration during the feasibility study, the calculations are essentially projections and are subjected to macroeconomic influences that can influence the outcome of property development projects significantly. As a result, property development practitioners should consider the following: incorporate the highest inflation forecast figure, allow for escalation in the procurement phase already, take all financial risk into consideration, and include the level of tolerance to increase product pricing to the consumer if market indicators and the property cycle allow it. Consumer confidence and ability. Property development projects have high monetary value relative to other businesses in terms of the gross domestic product. So, although it is a macroeconomic term, consumer demand plays an important role in determining the initiative to develop property. Property development knowledge areas continue. Procurement. The actual procurement of the contracting parties for the property development project has a significant influence on the feasibility during the operational phase of the project. Urban planning. Urban planning is conventionally undertaken by local authorities who govern the town planning of different areas of jurisdiction. As these local authorities serve a public purpose, their primary objective is not necessarily business orientated. However, no exclusions should even be considered by property development practitioners. Taking the long-term planning projections into consideration will indicate the opportunities where property development can be undertaken within the spatial development framework. Financial feasibility and other. Although feasibility and viability are generally known to be key factors affecting the success of property development projects, research has revealed confusion between the two concepts. The property development business plan needs to clearly define and articulate the two concepts in its final and professional formats. New proposed knowledge areas perceived to inform the property development life cycle. The aforesaid knowledge areas amongst the following newly identified variables emanating from literature and other related scientific research sources informs the property development project life cycle. Research emphasized that property development should be regulated by, amongst other, macroeconomic influences and should not be manipulated by role players. Property development intention. The property development intention should be directly proportional to the purpose arrived from valid and reliable data. This should, amongst other, formulated one of the initial stages of the property development project life cycle. Design thinking. At the time of digitalization, building information modelings and four-dimensional application in the built environment and business of property development, cognitive, strategic and practical processes by which design concepts are developed should be part of the process. Further research will identify in which stages of the property development life cycle the knowledge will be imminent and shared and applied. Systems, approach and application. The proposed property development project life cycle adopts various systems and processes into typical chronological and aligned stages towards mobilizing property development projects by means of best practice and sustainable success. Marketing. Marketing and property development are inseparable. Even if the developer becomes the investor, the marketing effort merely shifts in focus. Property development knowledge areas continue. Project management body of knowledge. The project management body of knowledge identified 10 knowledge areas informing project management best practice through 6 identified stages of the project life cycle within project management terms. As property development is positioned within the built environment and as current international research addresses, amongst other, the property development project life cycle, it is evident that this knowledge be constructed as a significant variable having an influence on the ultimate formulation of the perceived property development body of knowledge. Property development identification of work. Existing knowledge created different theories in terms of the identification of work in scope of services linked to the proposed property development project life cycle. This has not been refined yet. Current research identified this weakness and subsequent problem area being addressed in recent research. Property development process planning. Process planning informs integrated four-dimensional planning within property development and built environment projects. Strategic planning and appraisal. As property development constitute high strategic thinking and execution of well-planned business, the emphasis on strategy can never be underestimated. Continuous appraisal is part of the strategy. Development management. Development management is not unique to property development. It, amongst others, speaks to transformational management and decolonization. Property development knowledge areas continue. Economic indicators. This ever-changing debate should be incorporated throughout the property development project life cycle. The theory will be operationalized as such. Organizational behavior. As the property development discipline in its current state is not professionally governed, an elusive organizational behavior will be created as part of new knowledge. This knowledge in theory should inform the total property development project life cycle. Chronological and interlinked process flow. The interpretation will be to an extent like critical path and non-critical path in conventional construction. However, the indifferent approach is in the processes which are semi-chronologically and interlinked attached to each other depending the different scenarios. Future forecasting. Sustainable success in property development is subjected to, amongst other, having a very good understanding of what not only withholds within the 30 to 50 year space development planning of the various local authorities, but even more towards future scenarios in terms of probable critical deviation from conventional practice as a result of, amongst other, technology and unforeseen pandemics like COVID-19 and the ever-changing effect thereof. Property development knowledge areas continue. Turnaround strategies. Lessons learned from successful turnaround strategies of economic and aesthetically obsolete buildings are even more important than the identification of current problems. The empirical knowledge empowers further strategic thinking and implementation of mitigating factors, such as possible redevelopment, new development, or amended purpose. Property development process breakdown structures. There are no agreed international guide towards typical work breakdown structures of the property development project life cycle. Part of the current and future research will be based on creating a baseline, PDBok, to work from and refine. Public-private partnerships. This lecture explained, amongst other, property development in the private and public spheres. Existing knowledge recommended PPPs, but the reality is that the implementation thereof is lacking. Sustainability in property development. One of the primary objectives. Property development life cycle. This is the theoretical explanation of the process, and then in its current state is indicated in 15 stages. Business management. The generic concept of business management informs the business of property development. Life cycle factors. Certain identified factors will influence the final composition of the perceived property development project life cycle. Force majeure. The term that arrived during COVID-19. How will the inability to perform according to contract affect the property development project life cycle in the future? Property development best practice. The following model in front of you illustrates graphically the operationalized interdependencies between the proposed new knowledge areas that inform the property development project life cycle in the middle, indicating 15 stages, surrounded by the hypothetical added to existing 27 number in total constructs at this point in time, constituting property development knowledge areas. Perceived property development body of knowledge explained. Property development best practice. The property development project life cycle as informed by the property development knowledge areas known as the property development body of knowledge. Best practice guide towards sustainable success in the profession of property and real estate development. What does this all mean? Property development best practice explains how the property development project life cycle is informed by the property development body of knowledge. Although extensive research has been conducted in property and real estate development worldwide, the property development body of knowledge has not been created yet. The property development project life cycle has been identified to an extent as explained, hence an international agreed consensus seemed yet to be arrived at. This is read with the fact that there is no pure property development professional governance in the form of a statutory body or any other directly related professional governance constituting best practice in this principle, provide clear direction towards this research theme with the objective of creating new knowledge in this field that will be recognized as the international property development body of knowledge. The research. The major motivation for the further research on the subject matter relates to the following problem statement. The lack of a credible best practice guide for sustainable property development, PDBok, results in an ongoing non-compliance within the practice of property development. The questions emanating from the subsequent problems and sub-problems can be posed as follows. What authenticated research-based knowledge constitute a roadmap towards best practice in property and real estate development? Can the international arena agree to a generic property development project life cycle in its infinite form? What knowledge areas are outstanding that could support sustainability in property and real estate development? Why are there no proper professional governance in the practice of property and real estate development? The process. The ongoing research will be undertaken in a typical tripartite format, identifying the empirical findings on the proposed property development project life cycle and subsequent stage titles, identifying the knowledge areas that informs property development best practice, identifying the property development body of knowledge depicting the knowledge areas that informs the property development project life cycle. These tripartite motions should be able to provide answers and new knowledge based on the questions posed as part of the proposed further research. Amongst other, what authenticated research-based knowledge constitute a roadmap towards best practice in property and real estate development? What knowledge areas are outstanding that could support sustainability in property and real estate development? The result should produce the following new knowledge based on the proposed empirical research following on subsections of completed research. Conclusions. Importance of corporate governance in the practice of property development. The result of this work should produce the following new knowledge based on the proposed empirical research following on subsections of completed scientific research. Property development body of knowledge, a best practice guide towards sustainable success in the profession of property and real estate development. This proposed outcome should provide direction towards questions posed. Why are there no proper professional governance in the practice of property and real estate development? Recommendations: the creation of the property development body of knowledge through credible international scientific research. I thank you.
Good evening, colleagues, particularly to you, Professor Botha. It's been a real privilege to this evening listen to you. And my job is now to give a vote of thanks and also a vote of congratulation to you. I must congratulate you on the way that you shared the information this evening and your thoughts around property development, and particularly as a scholar that these thoughts have been informed by research, for example, into the success factors that are related to property development projects and the life cycle of property development, and that you're currently busy with a major project related to creating an international property development body of knowledge. And as our Vice-Chancellor shared early on, this is actually part of a second doctoral study as well, so congratulations on tackling that. You've also proposed a best practice guide towards sustainable success in the profession, and also I think how you professionalize the profession, just listening to how you were ending off over there. Through both of these works, you will make a highly significant contribution to the field and the profession. So I want to congratulate you on tackling these major projects, and I wish you well as you work to bring them to completion. Congratulations too on your contribution over many years as an academic at Nelson Mandela University. You have particularly excelled as a researcher and has received numerous accolades and awards for your research papers and have guided many students to be inducted into research as well through master's and doctoral studies. In addition, you are rooted in and actively engaged in your profession to enhance its knowledge base, but also in transferring competencies through mentoring and so on to those working in the profession. In this regard, you certainly live out the university's ethos to be in the service of society. I'd now like to take this opportunity to relay a message to you from the President of the Alumni Association. Dear Professor Botha, congratulations on your inaugural lecture. The Alumni Association looks forward to your support and involvement in our activities. To mark this very special occasion in your academic career and your time at Nelson Mandela University, on behalf of the association, I would now like to present you with a symbolic gift as we also wish you well in your future endeavors.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations and well done. In closing, I would like to convey our thanks to those who attended this inaugural lecture virtually. Your interest in Professor Botha's work and that of Nelson Mandela University is much appreciated. Thanks to our Vice-Chancellor, Prof. Mutwa, for welcoming everyone and introducing Prof. Botha, to our Executive Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology, Prof. van Wyk, for providing us a picture of Prof. Botha's CV, but also sharing that very heartfelt message around how Professor Botha has recovered from COVID. Last, but by no means least, thanks to the institutional governance team who are in the audience here, and also the Office of the Registrar, and to our communications and marketing team and our ICT team that made the virtual inaugural lecture possible. As usual, you've done a wonderful job. This brings to a close the inaugural lecture of Professor Brink Botha.